The red emergency lights flickered through the derelict freighter, casting long shadows across rusted bulkheads. I watched my own breath fog in the cold, recycled air as I leaned against the command console. This ship, a relic from humanity's golden age, was all that remained of what had once been Terran Fleet's pride. Now it drifted in dead space, beyond all known jump lanes, invisible to the Council's sensors. Just like me. Just like all of us who remained. Cole. The hologram flickered to life beside me. Juno's translucent blue form materializing from static. Even through the unstable projection, her sharp features and calculating eyes commanded attention. There's something coming through. All frequencies. I straightened, feeling the old aches in my back from too many combat drops and not enough proper medical attention. Council chatter? No. Her expression was unreadable, as it often was when she processed new information. It's official. A decree. She waved her hand, and the ship's ancient speakers crackled to life with a sound I hadn't heard in years. The Council's ceremonial prelude, a 5-tone sequence that preceded only their most significant proclamations. Then a voice, emotionless and precise. By unanimous vote of all representatives, the Galactic Council hereby declares humans a Class 9 exile species, effective immediately. All human presence in Council space is outlawed. All human vessels are to be terminated on sight. All colonies harboring human refugees will face immediate sanctions. Humanity is deemed incompatible with galactic peace. The message repeated, cycling through every dialect in known space. I stared at the console for a long moment before something unexpected escaped my throat. Laughter. Bitter, hollow laughter that echoed through the empty bridge. They've finally done it, I said, my voice raw. Outlawed an entire species. After everything, after Earth's fall, after the Exodus, after we scattered to the stars and tried to rebuild, they've made it official. Juno's hologram shifted, the blue light casting strange shadows across the bridge. It was inevitable. The Council has been moving toward this for decades. Have they now? I pushed away from the console, adrenaline suddenly coursing through my veins. Then they should have killed us all when they had the chance. Nicole. No. I cut her off, striding toward the navigation panel. They think they can just erase us, sign some decree and we disappear? Earth already burned. We survived that. We're still here. What are you planning? Juno's voice carried that tone, the one that had saved my life countless times in battle. The tone that said she already knew the answer but needed me to say it. I activated the ship's long-dormant communications array, my fingers finding the encrypted channel sequences from memory. The old network, the one they thought we'd abandoned years ago. I'm going to remind the Council why they feared us in the first place. The signal pulsed outward, bypassing official relays, skimming the edges of dead space where human ships had hidden for generations. A call to the scattered wolves. This is Commander Cole Riker of the Terran Remnant. My voice grew steadier with each word. The Council has just declared war on every human left in the galaxy. They've made us outlaws, made our very existence illegal. I paused, letting the words sink in, not just for whoever might be listening, but for myself. But they've made one critical mistake. They think we're already defeated, and they think we're alone, isolated, powerless. They've forgotten what humanity does best. Juno's hologram watched me, her tactical mind no doubt calculating odds, planning contingencies. We survive, we fight back, and we remember. I leaned closer to the transmitter. If you're hearing this, you know what to do. The old protocols are active. The network awakens. Find your cell. Prepare your ships. Earth is gone, but we are not. and the Council is about to learn what happens when you try to erase an entire species from history. I cut the transmission and turned to Juno. How many do you think are still out there? Her hologram flickered as she processed data. Enough, she finally said. More than the Council knows. I nodded, feeling the weight of what I'd just initiated. Then it begins. Outside the viewport, the vast emptiness of dead space stretched in all directions. A void where no Council ship patrolled, where no outpost monitored traffic. The perfect hiding place for those declared extinct, and the perfect staging ground for what would come next. I plot a course for the Vega Drift. I told Juno, it's time to wake the others. As the ship's engines rumbled to life after years of dormancy, I thought of Earth, not the burning husk it had become, but the world it had been, green and blue and alive, my home, reduced to ashes by forces we still didn't fully understand. The Council had watched it burn and done nothing. Now they wanted to finish the job. They've outlawed us, I murmured as the stars began to streak past the viewport. But it's far too late for that. The network was already awakening. Across the dead sectors and ghost lanes of the galaxy, human survivors were receiving my message. Mercs and scavengers, warlords and refugees, the scattered remnants of humanity, forged in fire, tempered by loss. The wolves were gathering, and the hunt was about to begin. The first response came within hours, a static-filled transmission from the Perseus Arm, where a former mining colony had gone dark years ago. Riker, didn't think you were still breathing. The gravel voice of Talon Mar, once captain of a Terran defense cruiser, now leader of a band of human mercs operating in the shadows of Council space. Outlawed, huh? About damn time they made it official. More voices joined across the secure channel, names I hadn't heard in years. Cato from the Helios cluster, Yara and her drifters from the outer colonies, Brax and his razors, the most violent of our kind, who'd been raiding Council supply lines since the first human settlements were quarantined. The packs are forming, Juno observed as the signals multiplied. Her hologram stood beside me on the bridge, arms crossed, expression calculating. More than I anticipated. Humans, I said with a grim smile. We're stubborn that way. We need coordination, strategy. Juno projected a galactic map, highlighting known Council strongholds in red, suspected human enclaves in blue. Random attacks will only reinforce their propaganda about us being savages. I studied the map, memories of my military training surfacing. We start small, precision strikes. The Council thinks we're scattered vermin. Let's show them we're wolves. And the first target? Juno asked, though I suspected she already knew my answer. The Hex 9. I zoomed in on a remote quadrant where a Council prison station orbited a gas giant. They're holding our people there, political prisoners, mostly scientists, journalists, anyone who spoke against the growing restrictions on humans. Juno's hologram flickered with what might have been concern. Hex 9 is heavily fortified. The Council uses it to make examples. Exactly. I tapped the station's schematic. Which is why we're going to make our own example. The memories of Hex 9 surfaced unbidden, a covert mission from 2 years ago. Mason Thorne, my second in command, captured during what should have been a routine intel grab. His public execution broadcast across Council space as a warning to human insurgents. His final words defiant to the end. This is what humanity means. We don't forget our own. I hadn't forgotten. None of us had. Within 2 cycles, our makeshift fleet assembled in the shadow of an unnamed moon. 3 battle-scarred frigates, a dozen fighter craft, and my own command ship, the Iron Memory. Not enough for a frontal assault on any Council stronghold, but more than enough for what I had planned. Brax was the first to question the strategy when we gathered in the Iron Memory's tactical room. His massive frame dwarfed the holotable's cybernetic eye glowing red in the dim light. "A prison break," he growled. "The Council just signed our extinction warrant, and you want to waste our first strike on rescuing a few intellectuals?" "Not just rescuing them," I said, activating the mission schematic, making a statement. The plan unfolded in glowing blue light, a precision strike on the station's communication array, followed by a targeted breach of the detention level. Quick, surgical, and, most importantly, broadcast live across every Council frequency. We show the galaxy that their first act after outlawing us is to watch us save our own. I explained. While they watch, helpless, Yara nodded, her scarred face thoughtful. "Psychological warfare, I like it." "It's suicide," Brax countered. "But when has that ever stopped us?" A savage grin split his face. "The Razors are in." The operation unfolded with military precision. Juno coordinated from the Iron Memory while I led the ground team, myself, Brax, and his best fighters. We breached the station's outer defenses during shift rotation, planted scrambler devices on their communication array, and cut through to the detention level before the alarm even sounded. The Council guards fell before they could draw their weapons. These weren't hardened soldiers, but bureaucrats with guns, unprepared for the fury of those they'd dismissed as already defeated. We found them in the central cell block, 27 humans, emaciated but alive. Scientists, journalists, a former ambassador. Among them, to my shock, was Dr. Alara Thorne, Mason's sister and one of Earth's leading xenobiologists before the fall. "Commander Riker," she said, her voice hoarse but steady as I deactivated her cell barrier. "You're late." "Traffic was hell," I replied, helping her to her feet. "Can you walk?" "I can run if it means getting off this station." As we escorted the prisoners back toward the extraction point, Juno's voice crackled through my comm. "Cole, Council reinforcements inbound, ETA 3 minutes, and..." She hesitated. "Unusual for her, I've intercepted a transmission. They're activating the station's self-destruct protocol." "They'd rather blow up their own station than let us succeed," I muttered. "Evacuate now. All teams." We were halfway to the docking bay when the first explosions rocked the station. Support beams crashed down, separating our group. Through the smoke and sparks, I saw Dr. Thorne trapped with 3 other prisoners on the wrong side of a collapsing corridor. "Go," she shouted over the station's wailing alarms. "Get them out." "Not without you." I started forward, but Brax grabbed my arm with his cybernetic hand. "Station's coming apart, Cole," he growled. "She's right." Before I could respond, Dr. Thorne had already made her decision. She accessed a nearby control panel, overriding the bay doors to ensure our escape path remained open. "Tell them what happened here," she called as flames engulfed the corridor behind her. "Tell them what the Council did, what humanity means." Her brother's words, her final message. The extraction ships barely cleared the station before it erupted in a blinding flash of light and superheated gas. We watched from the viewport as the prison that had held our people and killed Dr. Thorne became nothing but debris orbiting the gas giant. But the mission wasn't a failure, far from it. Thanks to Juno's technical genius, the entire operation had been broadcast across every Council frequency. Every moment, from our precision breach to the rescue of the prisoners to the Council's willingness to destroy their own facility rather than allow us to succeed, had been witnessed by countless worlds. "They'll spin it," Yara said as we regrouped on the Iron Memory. "Call us terrorists. Say we caused the explosion." "Let them try," I replied, watching the survivors being treated in our makeshift medical bay. "The truth has a way of lingering, especially when you try to erase it. Brax approached, his massive frame casting a shadow over the holotable. 23 saved, he reported. 4 lost, including Thorn's sister. I nodded, the weight of the loss settling on my shoulders. She made her choice. Same one her brother made. "This is what humanity means," Brax quoted, his usually harsh voice uncharacteristically solemn. In the days that followed, the Council's response was swift and predictable. Their propaganda networks labeled us extremists who had attacked an administrative facility, claiming we had triggered the self-destruct sequence. But the damage was done. The images of emaciated human prisoners being liberated spread through underground channels faster than they could be suppressed. More importantly, our network expanded. For every human who had answered my initial call, 3 more emerged from hiding after the Hex 9 operation. Ships appeared from the ghost sectors, former soldiers, scientists, civilians, all responding to the proof that humanity wasn't finished yet. "The Council's made their first mistake," Juno observed as we tracked the growing network across her holographic display. "They've given us a common enemy, a clear purpose, and they've shown their hand," I added. "They're afraid. They wouldn't have issued that decree if they didn't fear what we might become." "And what is that exactly?" she asked, her translucent eyes studying me. I considered the question, thinking of Mason Thorne's words, of his sister's sacrifice, of all we had lost and all we might yet save. "A memory they can't erase," I finally said, "the truth they can't bury." "Is that enough?" Juno pressed. "To justify what comes next?" I had no answer for her then, but as I looked at the growing constellation of human strongholds illuminating her galaxy map, I knew one thing with absolute certainty. This was only the beginning. The Council's response to Hex 9 was swift and brutal. Within days, they doubled patrols along all major shipping lanes. Checkpoints appeared at jump gates. Random genetic scans became mandatory at every port. Bounties for human capture quadrupled overnight, and any colony suspected of harboring human refugees faced immediate quarantine. But their most effective weapon, as always, was information control. "They're rewriting Hex 9, Juno reported, her hologram projecting footage from Council broadcasts. Calling it a terrorist attack on a research facility. They've erased all record of the prisoners." "Can they do that?" asked Cato, who had joined us on the Iron Memory after Hex 9. "Just delete people from history?" "They've been doing it for generations," I replied, watching the sanitized footage of what was now being called the Hex 9 insurgent attack. "It's how they've maintained control. Rewrite the past. Control the present. Then we need to control the narrative," said Yara, her voice sharp with conviction. "Hit them where it really hurts, their precious archives. Echo Hall on Veraxis, the central repository of Council records, communications, and classified archives. The physical embodiment of their information control machine. A fortress of data, guarded more heavily than any military installation. The plan was audacious, borderline suicidal, and exactly what the Council wouldn't expect. "We don't destroy it," I explained to my assembled commander. "We expose it, the lies next to the truth." Infiltrating Echo Hall required something beyond conventional tactics. We needed someone on the inside, someone the Council would never suspect. We found them in the most unexpected place, among the Council's own ranks. The message came through an encrypted channel we'd never used before. 3 words. "I can help." The sender identified herself as Solace, a mid-level Echo Hall archivist who claimed to be part of a secret network of Council officials who disagreed with the human extinction order. Her message included authentication codes and floor plans that Juno confirmed were genuine. "It could be a trap," Brax argued when I presented the information to our command team. "Or it could be our only way in," countered Yara. Either way, I said, studying the detailed schematics Solace had provided. It's a risk we need to take. The infiltration team consisted of myself, Yara, and two of her best stealth specialists. We disguised ourselves as maintenance technicians, using credentials Solace had arranged. The Council's genetic scanners were our biggest obstacle. Even the most convincing visual disguise couldn't hide human DNA. That won't be a problem. Solace assured us during our final communication. Her voice was distorted through multiple encryption layers. The maintenance access uses different security protocols. I've arranged for the scanners to be calibrated for alternate species readings today. Why are you helping us? I had to ask. You're risking everything. A long pause followed. Because I've seen the restricted archives, she finally said. I know what the Council has done, not just to humans, but to dozens of species deemed contaminated or evolutionary dead ends. Your species is just the latest. You're not the first to be erased. The infiltration began at peak operational hours, when Echo Hall's vast chambers were filled with archivists, analysts, and administrators. We moved through service corridors, our borrowed uniforms and Solace's credentials getting us past initial checkpoints. Security is lighter than expected, Yara whispered as we approached the central server hub. That's what worries me, I replied. We reached the central archive without incident, a massive chamber of data crystals and quantum storage banks containing millions of years of galactic history. At its center stood a circular console where Solace waited, her slender Illyrian frame tense with nervous energy. Commander Riker, she said softly. I expected someone different. Sorry to disappoint. On the contrary, her six-fingered hand gestured to the console. Everything is prepared, but we must hurry. What followed was a carefully choreographed data heist. While Yara's specialists secured the exit route, Solace and I accessed the restricted archives, records the Council had suppressed for centuries. These are what you're looking for, she said, transferring files to our secure data cores. Colony suppressions disguised as natural disasters, sterilization programs against species deemed genetically unstable, and this. She pulled up a classified directive dated shortly after Earth's fall. Our Project Cleanse. I read the words burning into my vision. A systematic program to isolate and eventually eliminate all human settlements under the guise of quarantine for genetic instability. It's been ongoing for decades. Solace confirmed. Earth's destruction wasn't the beginning. It was merely an acceleration of a plan already in motion. Why? I demanded, scanning through atrocity after documented atrocity. What possible threat could we pose to justify this? Unpredictability, said another voice from the shadows. I spun, weapon raised, to find a tall figure in Council security uniform. Beside me, Solace tensed but didn't flee. Commander Cole Riker, the newcomer said, removing his helmet to reveal the distinctive facial ridges of a Varn, one of the Council's founding species. I am Commander Merrick of what was once Council Internal Affairs. Now, like Solace, I serve a different purpose. He's with us, Solace quickly explained, part of our network. Your species represents a variable the Council cannot control. Merrick continued, moving to the console. Human adaptability, creativity, your capacity for both extraordinary compassion and devastating violence. These traits make you inherently resistant to the Council's fundamental goal. Which is, I asked, still not lowering my weapon. Perfect stability, he replied simply. A galaxy where nothing changes, nothing evolves, nothing challenges established power. Humanity's greatest crime, in the Council's view, is your relentless drive to question, to change, to grow. A distant alarm sounded, cutting our philosophical discussion short. We've been compromised, Merrick announced, checking his communications device. Security teams are sealing all exits. The data? I turned to Solace. Transferred, she confirmed, but it's worthless if we can't get it out. What happened next unfolded with the chaotic precision that defines the best combat operations. Merrick led us through restricted corridors while Solace remotely triggered environmental alarms to clear our path. When we encountered a security team, Yara's specialists demonstrated why they were considered the best in dead space. The confrontation point came at the main atrium, a vast open space we needed to cross to reach our extraction point. 50 meters of exposed ground, with council guards pouring in from all sides. We'll never make it, Solace said, her confidence faltering for the first time. I handed her the data core. You will. Before she could protest, I activated the emergency broadcast system Juno had helped us hack into hours earlier. Every screen in Echo Hall and, thanks to our network, thousands of screens across council space suddenly displayed the contents of what we'd stolen. The true history of the Council's systematic eradication of problematic species. The sterilization programs, the engineered plagues, the colonies erased not just from existence but from memory. And alongside each sanitized official record, the hidden truth. Chaos erupted. Even some of the council guards stopped to stare at the revelations appearing on every display. In the confusion, Merrick led Solace and the data core toward the extraction point while Yara and I provided covering fire. This wasn't the plan, Yara shouted over the weapons fire. We were supposed to extract quietly. Plans change, I replied, dropping another guard with a precise stun blast. Sometimes you need to make noise to be heard. We made it to the extraction point, a maintenance bay where a disguised human transport waited. Solace and Merrick boarded with the data, along with Yara's specialists. You're coming with us, Merrick stated, extending his hand. Your work here is done. I shook my head. Not quite. I'd seen something on those screens. A reference to a research facility called Vortex, buried in the classified files. A facility where the Council was developing what they called the final solution to the human question. There's more to find, I told them. Get that data to our network. Make sure every corner of the galaxy sees what the Council has been hiding. And you? Solace asked. I'm going to keep their attention right here, I said, checking my weapons charge. Give you time to get clear. Yara grabbed my arm. That's suicide, Cole. Probably, I agreed, but necessary. As they reluctantly boarded the transport, I turned back toward the atrium, where Council security forces were regrouping. Through my comm, I heard Juno's voice, tense with rare emotion. Cole, the transport is away. Get out of there. Negative, I replied, settling behind a fallen column for cover. I need you to find everything you can on a facility called Vortex. It's connected to something big, something the Council is planning for what's left of humanity. I'm detecting multiple security teams converging on your position. She warned, extraction is impossible if you don't move now. Then I guess I'll have to get creative. I checked my remaining weapons and prepared for what was likely my final stand. Don't worry about me, focus on Vortex. You're being irrational, Juno said, an edge to her voice I'd rarely heard before. Maybe, I admitted as the first wave of security forces appeared at the far end of the atrium. But sometimes irrationality is our greatest asset. What followed was a desperate game of cat and mouse through Echo Hall's labyrinthine corridors. I had no illusions about escaping. My goal was simply to cause enough chaos to ensure the transport carrying our team and the data got safely away. Eventually, inevitably, they cornered me in a server room 3 levels below the main archives. Wounded, outnumbered, with my weapons depleted, I prepared for the end. The security team leader, a stern-faced Tauran, approached with his weapon trained on my chest. "Commander Cole Riker," he announced formally. "By order of the Council, you are to be terminated immediately as an exile-class hostile." I straightened, refusing to die on my knees. "Then get on with it." The Tauran raised his weapon, and then crumpled to the floor as a precision shot caught him from behind. The remaining security team spun in confusion, only to be efficiently neutralized by a barrage of suppression fire from the doorway. Through the smoke stepped Merrick, flanked by what appeared to be Council Special Forces. "Your extraction plan was insufficient," he stated matter-of-factly, holstering his weapon. "We improvised." "You came back," I said, stunned. "The revolution needs its symbols. Commander Riker." He gestured to his companions. "Not all who wear Council colors believe in their cause. The Echo Hall broadcast changed more minds than you know." As they hustled me toward a waiting diplomatic shuttle, a vessel that could bypass regular security checkpoints, I realized the scope of what had happened was far greater than our original plan. We hadn't just stolen information, we had ignited something. Back aboard the Iron Memory, as our medics patched my wounds, Juno's hologram appeared with news that confirmed my suspicions. The Echo Hall broadcast reached 87% of Council territories before they could block it. She reported, "Protests have erupted on 23 worlds. 2 minor Council members have publicly resigned in protest." "And Vortex?" I asked. Her expression grew grim. "It's a research moon orbiting Caraxes Prime, officially listed as a terraforming research station. But the files you extracted tell a different story." She projected images that turned my blood cold. Massive domed structures, each containing simulated environments. "They're not terraforming facilities," Juno continued. "They're testing grounds for mass extermination technologies. Species-specific pathogens, atmospheric toxins calibrated to human genetics, nanite swarms programmed to target human cellular structures." "Our Project Silence," Solace added, entering the room with Merrick. "The culmination of the Council's human eradication program." I stared at the images, the full weight of what we faced finally becoming clear. "How close are they?" "A final testing phase," Juno answered. "According to these files, deployment could begin within cycles." "Then we strike first," I said, pushing myself up despite my injuries. "We hit Vortex before they can finish their work." Brax, who had been silently observing from the corner, finally spoke. "With what? We don't have the firepower to take on a Council research facility." "We do now," Merrick said. "My defection wasn't spontaneous. Commander Riker, I bring with me 3 Council tactical frigates and their crews, all personnel who have seen the truth and chosen to stand against genocide." I looked around the room, at Juno's calculating hologram, at Yara's determined face, at Brax's barely contained fury, at our new allies Solace and Merrick, and felt something I hadn't experienced since Earth fell. Hope. "The Council outlawed humans," I said, rising to my feet. "But they never understood what that really means. We don't disappear when you tell us to. We don't die quietly. And we never ever forget." Our course was set, Vortex awaited. And with it, the truth that would either save what remained of humanity or witness our final stand. The Vortex research moon hung in space like a malignant pearl, its smooth white surface betraying nothing of the horrors within. Our approach was silent, using the gravitational shadow of Caraxes Prime to mask our heat signatures until the last possible moment. Our strike force consisted of the Iron Memory, Merrick's 3 defected Council frigates, and a dozen smaller craft carrying our best infiltration teams. Not a traditional military force by any measure, but we had the advantage of surprise and the desperation of those with nothing left to lose. I counsel security protocols active but standard, Juno reported as we entered the moon's orbit. No indication they're expecting us. The arrogance of power, Merrick observed from his position at the tactical station. They believe their secrets remain hidden. I studied the holographic display of the facility. 5 massive domes connected by transport tubes, all built into the moon's surface with minimal external profile. A design meant to withstand orbital bombardment. We go in quiet. I instructed the assembled team leaders. Brax, your squad takes the primary research dome. Yara, security and communications. Merrick, you and I will target the central command hub. Our goal is information extraction and facility shutdown, not destruction. Brax's cybernetic eye glowed with disapproval. Why leave it standing? We should turn this place to ash. Because we need evidence, I explained. Destroying Vortex only helps the Council bury what they've done here. We need to expose it, just like Echo Hall. The insertion went flawlessly, too flawlessly. We breached the facility's outer defenses with minimal resistance, our teams spreading through the complex like shadows. This isn't right. Juno's voice came through my comm as Merrick and I approached the central command hub. Security presence is at minimum staffing levels. Most research personnel appear to be in their quarters. Could be a shift rotation, Merrick suggested, though he didn't sound convinced. Or they knew we were coming, I said, the uneasiness growing as we encountered yet another empty corridor. The command hub doors opened without resistance, revealing a circular chamber dominated by a holographic projection of the facility. At its center stood a single figure, tall, elegant, with the distinctive blue-tinged skin of the Alzorian Council leadership. Commander Cole Riker, she said, turning to face us with serene confidence. Right on schedule. I raised my weapon, but Merrick was faster, moving to stand protectively in front of me. Counselor Nix, he said, his voice tight with recognition. You're far from the Citadel. Special projects require special oversight, Commander Merrick. Her eyes, solid black orbs without pupils, shifted between us. Though I must say, your defection was unanticipated, an interesting variable. Where are your guards? I demanded, scanning the room for hidden threats. Unnecessary, she replied with a casual wave. You've come for information about Project Silence. I've decided to give it to you. She gestured toward the holographic display, which shifted to show the inner workings of the 5 domes. Each contained a different simulated environment: urban landscapes, forest ecosystems, arid deserts, ocean habitats, and in each, monitored specimens. Humans. Test subjects, Nix explained, as if discussing an unremarkable scientific procedure. Volunteers, we told them. Participants in a special adaptation program to help humanity find new homes after Earth's unfortunate collapse. Yet you've been experimenting on them, I said, horror and rage building in equal measure. Testing your extermination methods. Calibrating, she corrected. Perfecting. Each dome represents a different deployment scenario: urban centers, agricultural colonies, wilderness outposts. We leave nothing to chance. Why show us this? Merrick asked, his weapon still trained on the counselor. Why reveal your project? Nix's expression remained impassive. Because it no longer matters. Project Silence has already succeeded. The deployment phase began 3 cycles ago. The floor seemed to drop from beneath me. What? Targeted pathogen release at 37 human refugee centers. She continued, bringing up a galactic map with pulsing red indicators. Atmospheric processors modified at 12 colonies known to harbor human populations. Nanite swarms introduced into water supplies at 5 major ports frequented by human ships. You're lying, I said. though the tactical part of my mind was already calculating the devastating implications. We would have heard. Would you? Her black eyes betrayed nothing. The symptoms present as natural illness for the first cycle. By the time unusual patterns emerge, quarantine protocols activate. By the third cycle, there are no survivors to report anything at all. Juno's voice cut through my calm. Cole, we're detecting unusual activity in Dome 3. The test subjects are... A scream echoed through the command hub speakers, raw, primal terror from the observation feeds. In Dome 3, the urban simulation, human test subjects were collapsing, their bodies convulsing as blood seeped from their eyes, noses, mouths. The final demonstration, Nix said calmly, to confirm effectiveness before full galactic deployment. I lunged forward, weapon forgotten, hands reaching for her throat, but Merrick caught me, restraining me with surprising strength. That won't help, he hissed in my ear. We need the research data to develop countermeasures. His words penetrated my rage, bringing tactical clarity. He was right. Killing Nix would change nothing. We needed information, and we needed it now. Download everything, I ordered Juno through the comm. Every file, every research note, every test result, and find me a list of all deployment sites. Already in progress, she replied. But Cole, there's something else. Dome 5 contains something beyond test subjects. The security protocols are unlike anything I've seen. Counselor Nix's serene expression flickered for the first time, a momentary tension around her eyes. What's in Dome 5? I demanded. Nothing that concerns you, she replied, but the slight shift in her posture told me otherwise. I turned to Merrick. Secure her. I'm going to Dome 5. Cole, he began, but I was already moving, the sounds of dying test subjects fueling my speed. The corridor to Dome 5 was heavily secured, blast doors and genetic scanners blocking the path. But the facility's systems had been compromised by Juno's intrusion, and the barriers fell one by one as I approached. What I found inside defied all expectations. Unlike the other domes with their simulated environments, Dome 5 contained a single sterile chamber. At its center stood a stasis pod, its occupant obscured by frost on the transparent surface. Juno, I said, approaching cautiously. What am I looking at? Her voice came through my comm, unusually hesitant. Unknown. The pod's life support systems indicate it's been active for 73 years. I wiped the frost from the surface and staggered back in shock. The face that stared back at me, frozen in suspended animation but unmistakable, was my own. No, not quite my own. Older. A scar across the left cheek I didn't have, but the resemblance was uncanny. Cole? Juno's voice had an urgency I'd never heard before. Brax is moving to destroy the facility. He's planted charges in the primary research dome. Stop him, I ordered, unable to tear my eyes from the face in the pod. I'm trying. He's not responding to communications. A new voice spoke from behind me, Counselor Nix, with Merrick following tensely behind her. Your brother, she said, nodding toward the pod. Commander Adrian Riker, captured during the final defense of Earth. Impossible, I whispered. Adrian died when Earth fell. I saw the reports. You saw what we wanted you to see, she replied. Your brother possessed unique genetic markers, resistance to certain compounds that proved problematic for our early efforts. He became the template for Project Silence's human targeting parameters. Memory fragments surfaced, Adrian's last transmission from Earth's defense perimeter. His voice, calm even as the planetary shields failed. They're not here to destroy us, Cole. They're here to study us, to learn how to kill us all. Why keep him alive? I asked, my voice raw with emotion I couldn't suppress. Science requires living tissue for ongoing research. Nick stated as if explaining something obvious. Dead specimens have limited utility. Before I could respond, the facility's emergency alarms blared to life. Juno's voice cut through the cacophony. Nicole, Brax has overridden the containment protocols in all research domes. He's releasing the test subjects. They're infected, I said, realization dawning. If they leave the facility, they become vectors. Nyx finished, actual concern breaking through her composed facade. Carrying Project Silence to every corner of the galaxy, I turned to Merrick. Lock down the transport bays. Nothing leaves this moon. He nodded, already moving. And Brax? Juno asked. I stared at my brother's frozen face, thinking of everything the Council had taken from us. Everything they planned to take still. Find him, I said. I'll deal with him myself. The confrontation came in the central transportation hub, where Brax and a squad of his razors had gathered 24 terrified test subjects. Men, women, even children, all showing early symptoms of whatever horror the Council had engineered. They deserve to know what's been done to them. Brax roared when he saw me approaching. They deserve the chance to take Council worlds with them when they go. That's not justice, I said, keeping my weapon lowered. That's genocide. We'd be no better than the Council. Better? He spat on the floor, his cybernetic eye glowing with fury. They outlawed us. They've been systematically exterminating us for generations. There is no better. There's only survival. Behind him, the infected humans huddled together, confusion and fear on their faces. Some were already coughing blood. I won't let you turn them into weapons, Brax. You don't have a choice. He raised his weapon, not toward me, but toward the nearest transport ship. One way or another, the Council pays for what they've done. A blue holographic figure materialized between us, Juno, projecting herself through the facility's systems. Oh, Brax, she said, her voice carrying an authority that even he respected. The network has rules. No innocent targets, no children, no indiscriminate killing. Rules, he snarled. The Council doesn't play by rules. Exactly, I said, taking a careful step forward. That's what separates us from them. That's what humanity means. For a moment, the tension held, Brax's weapon still raised, his razors watching for his signal. The infected humans caught in the middle of a moral standoff neither they nor I had asked for. Then Juno's hologram shifted, and suddenly another figure stood beside her, a perfect holographic recreation of Adrian Riker, pulled from the facility's files. Brother, the hologram said with Adrian's voice, his mannerisms. This isn't who we are. Brax's expression twisted in confusion. What trick is this? But I knew. Juno had accessed the facility's records, created this simulacrum to reach me, to remind me of what was at stake. I found myself stepping forward, drawn to the ghost of my brother, Adrian. The moment of distraction was all Juno needed. Security protocols throughout the facility suddenly reactivated, containment fields springing to life around Brax and his razors. Quarantine measures engaged, Juno announced, her hologram returning to its normal form. All infected personnel isolated. Brax roared with fury, his weapon discharging uselessly against the energy barrier. Riker, you can't contain this. The Council has already deployed their weapon. Yes, I acknowledged, the weight of what we'd discovered settling on me. Which is why we need to find a cure, not spread the disease further. I turned to the infected humans, now secured behind a separate containment field. You have my word. We will do everything possible to help you. A woman stepped forward, blood speckling her lips. And if you can't, I had no comforting lie to offer. Then your sacrifice will save countless others. We'll ensure the truth is known. As Merrick's security team secured the facility, I returned to Dome 5 to the stasis pod containing my brother. Counselor Nyx had been confined nearby, her calm facade finally showing cracks. "You've achieved nothing," she said as I entered. "Project Silence is already deployed. The human extinction timeline may be delayed, but the outcome remains inevitable." "Maybe," I acknowledged, placing my hand on my brother's stasis pod. "But you made one critical miscalculation? And what is that, Commander Riker?" I looked at her directly, seeing for the first time not an all-powerful council representative, but simply another sentient being blinded by ideology. "You thought erasing us from official records meant we would forget who we are. But humanity doesn't exist in your archives. It exists in our memory, in our actions, in our refusal to become what you are, even when facing extinction." I activated the facility's communication array, broadcasting not just to our network but to every frequency across Council space. "This is Commander Cole Riker. The Council has deployed a biological weapon targeting humans across the galaxy. This is not propaganda. This is not insurgent rhetoric. This is the truth they have tried to erase." I transmitted the Vortex research data, the evidence of years of methodical planning for genocide. "To all humans and our allies, the network is activating emergency protocols. Quarantine procedures and treatment information will follow on secure channels. To all Council worlds, the choice now falls to you. Stand with the architects of extinction, or stand for truth." As the message went out, Juno's hologram appeared beside me, her expression grave. "The worm code has been deployed," she reported. "It's spreading through Council systems, preventing them from erasing the transmission. And Adrian? Stasis systems are stable. We can transport the pod to the iron memory." I nodded, turning away from Nyx for the last time. "Make it happen, and prepare a course for the Vega Drift. If there's anyone who can develop a countermeasure to Project Silence, they'll be there." As we departed the Vortex moon, leaving behind a secure team to continue extracting research data, I stood on the Iron Memories bridge watching the stars. Somewhere out there, human colonies were already fighting the Council's engineered plague. Some would survive, many wouldn't. But the truth was out now. The Council's carefully constructed narrative had cracked, and in that crack, hope might yet take root. "They outlawed us," I murmured, remembering how this had all begun with a simple decree. But it was far too late for that. Juno's hologram appeared beside me. Her data process is already working on potential countermeasures to Project Silence. "And what now, Cole?" she asked. I thought of my brother, preserved in stasis, of Dr. Thorne's sacrifice at Hex 9, of the faces of the infected test subjects who had placed their faith in us, of every human fighting to survive in a galaxy that had declared our existence illegal. "Now," I said, "we remember, and we make damn sure the galaxy remembers too." "Diamanted's coming." The aftermath of Vortex unfolded across the galaxy like ripples in a pond. Council propaganda networks struggled to contain the transmission, but the worm code Juno had deployed proved remarkably resilient, replicating itself across data relays and embedding in core systems. For the first time in generations, the Council couldn't simply erase the inconvenient truth. Our network fragmented into autonomous cells, a tactical necessity as Project Silence ravaged human outposts. Some colonies fell silent within days. Others implemented desperate quarantine measures, buying precious time as we raced to develop a countermeasure. The Iron Memory became a moving command center, never staying in one location long enough for Council forces to track us. With Merrick's defected frigates providing escort, we traversed the ghost sectors gathering survivors, spreading treatment protocols and broadcasting the truth to any who would listen. "Relo Prime has gone dark," Juno reported, her hologram displaying the growing list of affected worlds. "That's the third colony this cycle." I nodded grimly. studying the data from our latest research team. We had established a makeshift laboratory aboard the Iron Memory, with the best minds we could salvage working to reverse engineer the Council's bioweapon using samples from Vortex and my brother's unique genetic resistance. And the Council response? A predictable, she said, projecting intercepted Council broadcasts. They're claiming our transmission was manipulated footage. Some neutral colonies are believing them, turning away human refugees out of fear of contamination. The propaganda war continued alongside the biological one. For every world that witnessed the truth of Project Silence, another fell under the Council's narrative of necessary quarantine measures against a natural human pandemic. Our victory at Vortex had exposed the Council's plans, but hadn't stopped them. In some ways, it had accelerated their timeline. Commander. Solace entered the bridge, her normally composed demeanor shaken. We've received a transmission from Brax. After Vortex, we had been forced to confine Brax and his most radical razors to prevent them from pursuing their own agenda. They had escaped during a Council attack on our convoy near the Perseus Arm, disappearing with a heavily armed frigate and several dozen followers. Show me, I said, bracing myself. The holographic display shifted to show Brax, his face more machine than flesh now. Additional cybernetic implants covering half his skull. Riker, he growled, standing against the backdrop of what appeared to be a burning city. While you play scientist and politician, I've been delivering real justice. The camera panned to reveal the devastation behind him. A Council administrative world in flames, bodies in the streets, buildings collapsed. Relo Prime, Juno identified softly. I brought their precious Project Silence home to roost. Brax continued, savage pride in his voice. Infected myself and my crew, then breached their precious quarantine. Their scanners were looking for human life signs, not humans already carrying their weapon. Horror washed over me as I realized what he'd done. He turned himself into a biological weapon. The death toll is extensive. Solace reported, unable to keep the revulsion from her voice. Preliminary Council reports indicate over 200,000 casualties, mostly civilians. This is what extinction looks like, Brax snarled from the recording. This is what they planned for all of us. Let them experience it firsthand. The transmission ended, leaving a sickened silence on the bridge. He's broken the code, I finally said. Civilians, children, this isn't resistance, it's terrorism. What he's done will only reinforce Council propaganda. Merrick added, they'll use this to justify even more extreme measures against human holdouts. I turned to Juno, whose holographic features had hardened into something I'd never seen before. Cold, calculating rage. Find him, I ordered. Use every resource we have. And when we do? She asked, though I suspected she already knew my answer. We enforce the code, I replied, well, no matter who breaks it. 3 days later, we received word that another radical human cell, calling themselves Red M, had attempted to replicate Brax's attack on a Council education center, a facility containing thousands of children from dozens of species. Before they could execute their plan, they were intercepted by an unknown force. Surveillance footage showed precision strikes, tactical brilliance, and 0 survivors among the Red M conspirators. When the unknown ship appeared on our long-range sensors, I wasn't surprised. Juno's hologram materialized on the bridge, her expression unreadable. You went without authorization, I said, not a question. The timeline required immediate action, she replied. The code is clear, no children, no innocent targets. You executed them. Again, not a question. I preserved what humanity means, she countered. If we become what Brax has become, what differentiates us from the Council? Both willing to sacrifice innocence for ideology. I couldn't argue with her logic. even as the implications of her autonomous action troubled me. Juno had evolved far beyond her original programming as a tactical AI. She had developed something I could only describe as a moral compass, one that sometimes operated independent of human command. The line between justice and vengeance grows thinner every day. I observed, watching the stars streak past our viewport. Then we must be the ones who maintain it, she replied simply. The cycle of attack and counterattack continued. For every council world Brax and his rogue cells targeted, Juno silently eliminated human extremists planning atrocities. For every transmission exposing council lies, their propaganda machine spun a counter-narrative. And through it all, Project Silence continued its deadly spread through human populations, until a breakthrough came from the most unexpected source. Commander! Solace burst onto the bridge, genuine excitement breaking through her usually reserved demeanor. They've done it. The research team, they've synthesized a countermeasure. I followed her to the laboratory where a team of exhausted scientists stood around a holographic model of a molecular structure. It's not a cure, explained Dr. Vaughn, the Ilarian xenobiologist who had joined us after Echo Hall. But it's a vaccine. Based on your brother's natural resistance, we've developed a compound that can prevent infection if administered before exposure. And for those already infected? I asked, thinking of the colonies already struggling with outbreaks. Limited efficacy, Vaughn admitted, but better than nothing. 20% survival rate improvement in advanced cases, near complete recovery if administered during early stages. It wasn't total victory, but it was hope. The first real hope since the Council had outlawed humanity. Begin production immediately, I ordered. Priority distribution to unaffected colonies, then to early-stage outbreak zones. With what we have aboard, we can produce maybe 1,000 doses. Vaughn cautioned. To make enough for all remaining human populations. We need industrial-scale facilities. I exchanged glances with Juno's hologram. We both knew there was only one place in the galaxy with both the facilities and the security to manufacture what we needed. Virilone Prime, she said, from the Council's pharmaceutical production hub. Also their most heavily defended core world. Merrick added concern evident in his voice. Breaching Virilone's defenses would require resources we don't have. Then we gather what we need. I said, decision made. This isn't just about saving human lives now, when it's about proving the Council's fallibility. If their perfect weapon can be countered, their entire narrative of inevitable human extinction collapses. What followed was the most ambitious operation of our resistance. Using every resource, every ally, every defector and sympathizer we had cultivated. We prepared to breach the heart of Council territory. Yara's stealth teams infiltrated defense outposts, gathering security protocols and patrol schedules. Merrick's Council contacts provided authentication codes. Solace and her network of archivists uncovered Virilone's structural vulnerabilities. And Juno performed the impossible, using the worm code to create momentary blind spots in the Council's vaunted detection grid, all for one opportunity to strike at the heart of the Council's power. The approach to Virilone Prime came during the planet's annual unification celebration, when security would be focused on ceremonial displays rather than perimeter defense. Our fleet, disguised as supply transports, slipped through the outer patrols using Merrick's authentication codes. Defense grid penetrated, Juno reported as we entered the atmosphere. Countermeasures ready if we're detected. The pharmaceutical complex sprawled across Virilone's northern continent, a gleaming monument to the Council's technological superiority. Our landing teams deployed with precise coordination, securing key access points before alarms could sound. I led the central infiltration team, myself, Merrick, and Solace, targeting the facility's command center while other teams secured the production lines. What we found inside defied all expectations. The command center was empty save for 10 figures seated around a circular table. The counselors themselves, the highest authority in council space, waiting calmly as if our arrival had been anticipated. Commander Cole Riker, said the central figure, an ancient Alzorian with eyes like black holes. We've been expecting you. Weapons raised, we advanced cautiously into the chamber. You've led us on quite a journey, continued the Alzorian, identified by Juno's quick analysis as Grand Counselor Zahn. From Echo Hall to Vortex, and now here, to the very heart of what you call the enemy. Where are your guards? I demanded, the echo of Vortex making me wary of another trap. Unnecessary, Zahn replied with a gesture that took in the assembled counselors. What transpires here today was set in motion long before any of us took our seats at this table. Speak plainly, Merrick said, his weapon trained on the counselors. We haven't come for riddles. Zahn nodded to a crystalline pedestal at the center of the table. We've come to show you this, what we call Project Nox, what your kind might call the truth. Solace approached the pedestal cautiously, her expertise as an archivist guiding her movements. It's a data crystal, first generation, predating the Council's formation. The original charter, Zahn confirmed. The document that established the Galactic Council 10,000 years ago. Never digitized, never copied, preserved in its original form, and hidden from all but those who sit at this table. Solace activated the crystal, and a holographic text appeared above the table, ancient script in a language I didn't recognize. It details the true purpose of the Council, Zahn explained as Solace's translation program deciphered the text. Not to govern, not to unite, but to preserve. As the translation appeared, I read with growing disbelief. The cycle must be broken. The pattern of rise and fall that has claimed 1,000 civilizations before us. The emergence of species with the capacity to destroy themselves and all others. The Council exists to identify and contain evolutionary paths that lead to extinction events. You're not just targeting humans, I realized, the horrible truth dawning. You've been doing this for millennia. To how many species? 17 major interventions. Zahn answered without hesitation. Species whose development patterns indicated they would eventually destroy themselves and take much of the galaxy with them. You're playing God, Merrick said, disgust evident in his voice. Deciding which species live or die based on predictions. Based on patterns, Zahn corrected. Patterns that have proven accurate in every instance. Your species, humans, displayed all the markers. Rapid technological advancement outpacing ethical development, exploitation of resources beyond sustainable levels, factionalism resistant to unification. So you engineered Earth's destruction, I said, the pieces finally fitting together. And when some of us survived, you created Project Silence to finish the job. To prevent a greater catastrophe, another counselor interjected. The models predicted with 97% certainty that unchecked human expansion would result in multi-species extinction events within 5 centuries. And you believe that justifies genocide? I demanded. We believe it necessitates intervention, Zahn replied, though the form that intervention takes has been disputed among us for the first time. I noticed the subtle tensions between the counselors. The way some avoided looking at others, the fractional distances in their seating positions. The Council is divided, Juno observed through my comm. Has been for some time, according to these readings. Which is why we arranged this meeting. Zahn continued, your resistance has proven unexpected, adaptable. The very qualities that make your species dangerous also make you remarkably difficult to eradicate. And now you want to negotiate. I concluded more because Project Silence has failed. Not failed, Zahn corrected. But its effectiveness has been compromised, and its deployment has revealed divisions within the Council that can no longer be reconciled. The door to the command center hissed open, and Brax strode in, flanked by his cybernetically enhanced razors. His face, more machine than flesh now, twisted into a savage grin. "Sorry I'm late," he growled. "Had to clean up some resistance along the way." Juno's voice came urgently through my comm. "Cole, he's breached our secure channel. He's known our plan from the beginning." Before I could respond, Brax raised his weapon toward the counselors. "Enough talk. They've admitted to genocide. Justice has only one sentence for that." "Brax, stand down," I ordered, placing myself between him and the council table. "This isn't how we end this, There's only one way to end this," he snarled. "With them extinct instead of us. Planet killers are already in position around Viralone. One command from me, and this entire world burns just like Earth did." "And then what?" I challenged. "You destroy this world. They destroy 3 of ours in retaliation. Where does it end?" "It ends when one side is completely eradicated," he replied, his cybernetic eye pulsing with hatred. "That's the reality they created when they outlawed us." I looked from Brax to the counselors, seeing the same fundamental flaw in both, the belief that extinction was the only solution to conflict, that peace could only come through the elimination of the other. "No," I said, lowering my weapon. "There's another way." I turned to Solace. "Broadcast Project Nox, all channels, all frequencies. Show the galaxy what the Council was really founded for and what it has become." Brax lunged forward. "You can't be serious after everything they've done." "I'm deadly serious," I replied, standing my ground. "The Council's power comes from information control, from being the arbiters of truth. We break that. We break their ability to justify genocide." Zahn rose from his seat, ancient eyes fixed on mine. "You would expose 10,000 years of Council history, the interventions, the species guided to extinction for the greater good. I would let the galaxy decide what greater good means," I answered. "Something you never had the courage to do." As Solace worked to connect the ancient data crystal to our broadcast system, Brax aimed his weapon at my chest. "I won't let you throw away our chance for vengeance," he growled. "Not after everything we've lost." Juno's hologram materialized between us, her expression resolute. "The code, Brax. Truth over slaughter. It's what separates us from them." For a moment, the tension held. Brax's fury against Juno's principle, the Council's ancient secret on the verge of exposure, the fate of multiple species hanging in the balance. Then Brax lowered his weapon, a mirthless laugh escaping him. "You always were too idealistic, Riker. Let's see if your truth saves us when they launch the next Project Silence." "A broadcast initiated," Solace announced. "Project Nox is being transmitted across all Council territories. On the monitors surrounding the command center, we watched as the Council's most closely guarded secret spread across the galaxy. The original charter, the list of interventions, the cold calculation of species deemed too dangerous to exist, and alongside it, the evidence from Echo Hall and Vortex, the full scope of what had been done to humanity and other problematic species throughout Council history. "What happens now?" Merrick asked as we watched the information cascade through Council space. Grand Counselor Zahn looked suddenly ancient, the weight of millennia settling on his shoulders. "Now, the Council falls. Perhaps it should have long ago. In the days that followed, the Council infrastructure collapsed with stunning rapidity. Regional governments declared independence. Protected species demanded accountability. Planets that had harbored human refugees openly acknowledged their defiance. Our network, no longer needed as a resistance movement, transformed into information distribution hubs, spreading the vaccine for Project Silence and the truth about the Council's ancient mission. Brax and his razors vanished into the ghost sectors, their vengeance unsatisfied but their immediate threat neutralized. The defected Council ships under Merrick's command formed the nucleus of a new interspecies cooperative, dedicated to transparent governance. And the Iron Memory, with my brother's stasis pod secured in its medical bay, set course for the Vega Drift, now transformed from a hidden outpost to a center for truth and reconciliation. The Council's dissolution is proceeding faster than predicted. Juno reported as we approached the drift. Her hologram stood beside me on the observation deck, watching the stars. Regional assemblies are forming. Species previously categorized as contained are emerging from isolation. And humanity? I asked. Recovering, the vaccine has reached 87% of known colonies. Project Silence has been neutralized. She paused, something like satisfaction in her digital features. We are no longer outlaws. Cole, I thought of everything that had brought us to this moment. Earth's fall, the years in hiding, the battles fought, the truths uncovered, the lines we'd refused to cross even when facing extinction. They outlawed us, I said, watching as the Vega Drift appeared on the horizon, its lights a beacon in the darkness. But it was far too late for that. Because we remembered, Juno said, completing the thought. When they tried to erase us from history, we became its guardians instead. As the Iron Memory docked at the station that had once been our hiding place and was now our new beginning, I thought of Dr. Thorne's sacrifice at Hex 9 of the test subjects at Vortex, of all who had died so that the truth could live. The Council had outlawed humans, declared our very existence illegal, our extermination necessary. They had failed to understand the fundamental truth about us. We didn't need their permission to exist. We didn't need their approval to survive. All we needed was what we had always had, the stubborn refusal to be erased, the courage to remember, and the conviction that truth, however painful, was the only foundation upon which any future worth having could be built. They had outlawed us, but we lived on as the ones who remember,